Today I want to show you a little bit about what we've got going with Quarkus in OpenShift Serverless Functions. You can check out some of my earlier videos to see some of the basics of how to get started with serverless functions. So I'm just going to dive right in here. We've got this thing called Quarkus, and we can run functions using Quarkus, and OpenShift Serverless Functions supports that. You create it with faz init and pass it Quarkus as the language, and in this case I want to show you a little bit about how Quarkus works with cloud events. So that's what I did to create my project, and we can see that I've got my typical directory structure here. One thing that's different is the faz.yaml file, and the faz.yaml file tells the faz CLI all about your project. So it'll, you can see here that it knows what the image is. You can specify different CNCF build pack builders, that sort of thing. But I want to jump into the code here. So let's go over to my IDE. This is what the template looks like when you generate a new Quarkus project. It's got a few different files here. The most basic of them is this one called primitive functions. And you can see here that you expose a function as something that can be run within the serverless functions using the func annotation. You tell Quarkus what function you want to actually have invoked by modifying the application.properties. And in application.properties, we're specifying that we want to have the greet function invoked, which we'll take a look at in just a minute. I want to go over these basic ones first. So remember I said that this is a project that is triggered by cloud events. But what's odd is that these functions receive just a primitive value. The way that works is Quarkus looks at the cloud event, extracts the data from it, casts it to the appropriate type, like a string or an integer, or it could cast it to like a POJO. That's if the data content type in the event is application JSON. Right? Because POJO is basically just nothing but a class with some properties, just like some JSON. So in the greeting functions file here, this is the function that we're going to export and have invoked. So what's going on here? First of all, there's a few things in here that are just in here to show you that it can be done. Like, for example, this does not need to be an asynchronous function, but it in fact is, using small ride mutiny to do that. But that's not super important. What I want to show you is that the identity class is passed in as the property. So when a cloud event comes in with a little bit of JSON that matches this POJO, so it's got a name, and that's it. So we get and set the name. So if we get a piece of JSON in a cloud event that has an identity with basically a name, that will be turned into an identity object, and then you can just use it like any other object in Java. And you can see that this just responds, it's like a hello world. It's pretty basic. So let's go ahead and deploy this thing. I do that by doing faz deploy, and it'll just push that function up to my cluster. I've got a cluster running up here, and we can see, okay, it's already been deployed. Now, I told you that it needs to respond to events. So let's add an event source. I can go over here to event source, and we're just going to do something basic like a ping source. And the data that we want to send to it is, remember, an identity object. So we're going to send it ping source as a little bit of JSON. And we're going to do this every minute. And you can see that the sync here by default is my Quarkus function. I don't have any other functions that could be a sync, so that's what it defaults to. And when I click create, we should see the ping source come up in our topology. Yep, it has spun up, and we can see that it's connected to my Quarkus function. Now I can go over here to the Quarkus function and take a look at the logs. It says it's running. Let's see what the logs say. We can see that it's running, and hopefully the ping source will start sending events to it before the serverless spin down happens to spin down to 0. Just give it a second for the ping source to activate. Well, it's still there. Up, it spun down and now it's spinning back up again. Because this is serverless functions, it wasn't receiving events and it spun down to 0 containers or 0 pods. But then once the events started flowing into it, Knative spun that thing back up. So let's see what this new pod looks like. And we can see now that it's receiving the source, the ping source. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's what you have to look forward to this fall with OpenShift Serverless Functions. You can download it right now at the github.com boson project/faz. This is the CLI, and it will work to, if you just go to, sorry, I should say, go to, not actions, but go to releases. You can download 070, I believe that's what I was demonstrating with. This will be coming out in dev preview in the fall. If you do play around with it, let me know how it works for you. If you're using straight up Kubernetes, it'll work just fine as long as you've got Knative serving and eventing installed there. All right. Enjoy.